Summary: a work of art. Summary: this summary encapsulates the main plot points and themes of the story, providing an overview of Juliet and Leonardo's journey, from their first meeting to their decision to explore the world together. It highlights the central conflicts, character development, and the overarching theme of self-discovery through art and love. A work of art. You became a work of art and you don't know it. With your beauty, you captivate. Your beauty does not evoke erotic desire, but simple admiration, so beautiful that I'm afraid to touch you, lest I hurt you or perhaps fall in love with you. You became a work of art and you don't know it. The only thing you know is that you captivate everyone. You became a work of art and you don't know it, and you trap your soul in all the shouldn'ts that society demands. Life is also a work of art, with all the shoulds and shouldn'ts that society demands, like a prepaid check without happiness. Without life, you became a work of art for one life only, which does not see you as a mere mortal. You are a true goddess for my soul. Chapter 1: The City of Whispers. In the misty mountains of Hanshu, Japan, nestled a city that seemed to exist in a world of its own. Kanazawa, known for its preserved Edo-era districts and exquisite gardens, held secrets in its winding streets and ancient tea houses. Here, where tradition and modernity danced in an intricate ballet, lived a young woman named Juliet Tenacre. Juliet was not named for Shakespeare's tragic heroine, but for her grandmother's favorite flower, the Juliet rose. Like her namesake, she bloomed with a beauty that was both delicate and resilient. Her almond-shaped eyes, the color of warm honey, seemed to hold within the wisdom of ages. Her long, raven black hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall of silk. And her smile, her smile, it was said, that it could coax the sun from behind the most stubborn of clouds. But Juliet's beauty was not merely skin-deep, radiated from within, born of a kind heart and a gentle spirit. She moved through the world with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly, as if she were constantly dancing to music only she could hear. Chapter 2: The Tea House of Dreams. The Tanakar family had owned the Sakura no Yume, cherry blossom dream tea house for generations. It was a place where time seemed to slow, where the aroma of freshly brewed green tea mingled with the sweet scent of wagashi confections. Juliet had grown up among the tatami mats and shaji screens, learning the art of the tea ceremony from her mother and grandmother. Every morning, Juliet would rise before dawn to prepare the tea house for the day. She would sweep the wooden ingower, arrange fresh flowers in the takenoma alcove, and ensure that each tea bowl was perfectly polished. As she worked, she would hum softly to herself old songs her grandmother had taught her. Songs of love, of loss, of the changing seasons. It was during these quiet morning hours that Juliet felt most at peace. The world outside was still asleep, and she could pretend just for a moment that she was free from the expectations that weighed so heavily upon her shoulders. Up to 3, the weight of tradition. For all her grace and beauty, Juliet carried within her restlessness that she dared not speak aloud. She loved her family and respected the traditions that had shaped her world. But she longed for something more, something she couldn't quite name. The elders of Kanazawa watched Juliet with approving eyes, nodding to themselves as they whispered about her prospects. She'll make a fine wife for the Nakamura boy, they would say, or perhaps Yangito from the kimono shop. Either way, she'll carry on the family business beautifully. But Juliet's dreams stretched beyond the walls of the tea house, beyond the narrow streets of Kanazawa. She yearned to explore the world, to experience life in all its messy, glorious complexity. Yet she kept these dreams locked away in her heart, afraid of disappointing her family or disrupting the delicate harmony of her community. Chapter 4: The Wandering Artist. It was on a misty spring morning that Leonardo Rossi first set foot in Kanazawa, an artist from Florence, Italy. He had spent the past decade traveling the world, seeking inspiration for his paintings. His once passionate pursuit of beauty had gradually dimmed, replaced by weary cynicism. He had seen so much painted, so many faces and landscapes, that he began to wonder if there was anything left in the world that could truly move him. Leonardo's arrival in Kanazawa was met with curious stares and hushed whispers. With his unruly curls, scruffy beard, and paint-stained clothes, he stood out starkly against the backdrop of the traditional city. He spoke little Japanese, communicating mostly through gestures and the universal language of art. For the first few days, Leonardo wandered the streets aimlessly, his sketchbook tucked under his arm. He drew the ancient castles and serene gardens, but found himself unsatisfied with each piece. Something was missing, though he couldn't quite put his finger on what it was. Chapter 5. The First Encounter. It was in the Kenroku-en garden that Leonardo first saw Juliet. She was kneeling beside a small stream, carefully arranging a set of bamboo pipes to create a sozu, a type of water fountain. The morning light filtered through the trees, casting a golden glow upon her face. Leonardo's breath caught in his throat. In that moment, it was as if the world around him faded away, leaving only this vision of beauty before him. Without thinking, he began to sketch furiously, desperate to capture the essence of what he was seeing. Juliet, sensing his, looked up. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to stand still. Then with a shy smile, she rose and hurried away, leaving Leonardo staring after her, his half-finished sketch trembling in his hands. Chapter 6. The Portrait. In the days that Leonardo found himself drawn again and again to the tea house, he would sit for hours sipping green tea and sketching the patrons, all the while hoping for another glimpse of the mysterious girl who had so captivated him. Finally gathering his courage, Leonardo approached Juliet father Hiroshi Tanaka. With the help of a local translator, he explained his desire to paint Juliet's portrait. Hiroshi was hesitant at first, protective of his daughter and wary of the foreign artist's intentions. But Leonardo's passion and he won him over, and he agreed to discuss the matter with Juliet. To everyone's surprise, Juliet agreed to sit for the portrait. Perhaps it was curiosity about the strange foreign artist, or perhaps it was a subconscious desire to break free from the routine of her daily life. Whatever the reason, Juliet found herself both nervous and excited as she prepared for her first session with Leonardo. Chapter 7. The Unveiling of Souls. As Leonardo began to paint, something magical happened. The initial awkwardness between them melted away, replaced by a comfortable silence, punctuated by gentle conversation. Leonardo spoke of his travels, of the wonders he had seen and the people he had met. Juliet in turn shared stories of her life in Kanazawa, of the changing seasons and the ancient traditions that shaped her world. Through these conversations, Leonardo began to see beyond Juliet's physical beauty. He saw her kindness in the way she spoke about her family and friends. He saw her intelligence in her thoughtful questions about his art and his travels. He saw her strength in the way she carried the weight of her family's expectations with grace and dignity. And Juliet, too, began to see Leonardo in a new light. She saw past his rough exterior to the sensitive soul beneath. She admired his passion for his art and his courage in pursuing his dreams. In him she saw a glimpse of the world beyond Kanazawa, and it both thrilled and frightened her. Chapter 8. The Awakening. As the days turned in 2 weeks, Juliet found herself changing. The time spent with Leonardo had awakened something within her, a desire for more, a courage to question the path that had been laid out for her. She began to speak up more at home, to express her own opinions and desires. This change did not go unnoticed. Hiro. She watched his daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. He saw her blossoming into a strong, independent woman, but he also feared for her future. In a society that often stifled such independence in women, Leonardo too was changing. The cynicism that had clouded his vision for so long began to lift. Through Juliet's eyes, he rediscovered the beauty in the world around him. His paintings took on a new vibrancy, capturing not just the physical reality of his subjects, but their inner essence as well. Chapter 9. The Festival of Lights. As summer gave way to autumn, Kanazawa prepared for its annual Festival of Lights. The city came alive with lanterns and bonfires, the streets filled with the sound of music and laughter. It was during this festival that Leonardo's portrait of Juliet was to be unveiled. The painting was displayed in the main square, covered by a sealed cloth. As night fell and the lanterns were lit, a hush fell over the crowd. Leonardo, standing beside the veiled painting, felt a moment of doubt. Would they see what he saw? Would they understand? With a deep breath, he pulled away the cloth. There was a collective gasp from the crowd, followed by a profound silence. The painting showed Juliet, but not as the demurity housemaid in town knew. Instead, Leonardo had captured her spirit, fierce, free and full of life. In the painting, Juliet stood atop a hill, her hair flowing freely in the wind, her arms out if embracing the world. Behind her, the familiar landscape of Kanazawa blended with fantastic, dreamlike elements, cherry blossoms that turned into butterflies, mountains that curved like waves, stars that danced in the sky. But it was Juliet's expression that truly captured the viewer's attention. Her eyes seemed to blaze them in a fire, Her smile held a hint of a challenge. This was Juliet as she truly was, as she longed to be unbound by convention. Unafraid to dream. Chapter 10, The Aftermath. The unveiling of the portrait sent shockwaves through Kanazawa. Some wise claiming that Leonardo had dishonored Juliet and her family. Others were moved to tears, seeing in the painting a reflection of their own hidden desires and dreams. For Juliet, seeing herself through Leonardo's eyes was a revelation. For the first time, she truly saw herself not as the perfect daughter, not as the future wife, but as a woman with dreams and desires of her own. It gave her the courage to finally speak her truth. In the days that followed, Juliet had long, difficult conversations with her parents. She spoke of her desire to see the world, to pursue an education, to find her own path in life. A surprise and relief, her parents listened. They didn't agree with everything, but they began to understand. Leonardo, for his part, found himself at a crossroads. His time in Kanazawa had reawakened his passion for art. But more than that, it had opened his heart. He realized that in July he had found not just a muse, but a kindred spirit. Chapter 11, The Choices. As the leaves began to turn golden, Leonardo prepared to leave Kanazawa. He had commissions waiting in other parts of Japan and beyond that. The world called to him as it always had. But now the thought of leaving filled him with a sense of loss he never experienced before. On the eve of his departure, Leonardo and Juliet met in the Kenroku Ion Garden, at the very spot where they had first seen each other. The air was crisp with the promise of winter, and the moon hung low and full in the sky. "Come with me," Leonardo said softly, taking Juliet's hand. "We can travel the world together. I'll show you all the beauty I've seen, and discover new wonders by your side." Juliet's heart soared at the offer, but she hesitated. She thought of her family, of the tea house, of the life she had always known. Could she really leave it all behind? I need time," she whispered, her voice trembling. "This is all I've ever known. I can't just leave overnight." Leonardo nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Then I'll wait," he said. "I'll come back in the spring when the cherry blossoms bloom. If you're ready, then we'll go together. Not then, at least we'll have had this time." The winter passed slowly for Juliet. She threw herself into work at Tea House, but also began to explore new interests. She took classes in English and art history at the local college and started to paint herself. Inspired by Leonardo's passion, her parents, seeing her determination, gradually came to accept that their daughter's path might be different from what they had envisioned. They began to share stories of their own youthful dreams, some pursued, some left behind. Through these conversations, the family grew closer than ever before. As the snow melted and the first buds appeared on the trees, Juliet found herself watching the road into town, her heart quickening at the sight of every traveler. And then one misty morning, she saw a familiar figure walking up the path to the tea house, a nasal strapped to his back. Leonardo had returned as promised. He looked different. His hair was shorter, his clothes cleaner, but his eyes still held the same warmth and passion. Juliet met him at the door of the tea house, her family standing behind her. There was a moment of silence as they looked at each other, 1,000 unspoken words passing between them. Then, with a smile that could rival the sun, Juliet held out her hand. "I'm ready," she said simply. Leonardo took her hand, his eyes shining with joy and unshed tears behind them. Hiroshi and his wife exchanged the look of bittersweet pride. Their daughter was about to embark on an adventure, to become the author of her own story, as Juliet and Leonardo walked hand in hand towards their future. The cherry blossoms began to fall, swirling around them like confetti. In that moment, they were more than just two people in love. They were a testament to the power of art to transform lives, to the courage it takes to follow one's heart, and to the beauty that can be found when two souls recognize themselves in each other. And so, as the petals danced on the breeze, Juliet and Leonardo set off towards the horizon, ready to paint their masterpiece together, the masterpiece self, the end.